not a queen, because I walk like that, and I talk like this, and I don't hold back. They say I'm not a queen when I act like this, when I dress like that, when I flex like this. They say I'm not a queen, cause I talk my shit, and I back it up, and I don't write dick. They say I'm not a queen, cause I had an abortion. Oh, she thinks she important. It's all bullshit. Way too savage, I don't meet industry standards. I get way too honest when I'm in front of a camera. Had to bet on myself, invest in myself. A queen that's on guard, can't think less of myself. I gave you all of me, I need the rest of myself. Why you calling me if you don't want my help? Stay far from me if you against my health. No one will stop what I just built. He ain't stopping me, she ain't stopping me, you ain't stopping me, I ain't stopping me. All of my comments know they be watching me. They say I'm spoiled, they say I'm vain, I plead the fifth. They say I'm a plant like they the ones who grew my shit. Queen-ish, been through it, I seen shit that's real. My demeanor don't mean I'm a mean bitch, so chill. They say I talk too loud, tone it down, you do too much. Like if you ain't kissing nobody ass, then you ain't doing enough. That's why they say I'm not a queen if I don't have a king. I don't have a clue if I don't have a ring. They say I'm not a queen, cause I ain't getting naked. She ain't gon' really make it. It's all bullshit. Way too savage, I don't meet industry standards. I get way too honest when I'm in front of a camera. Had to bet on myself, invest in myself. A queen that's on guard, can't think less of her. I gave you all of me, I need the rest of myself. Why you calling me if you don't want my help? Stay far from me if you against my health. No one will stop what I just built. They say I'm not a queen, because I walk like that, and I talk like this, and I don't hold back. They say I'm not a queen when I act like this, when I dress like that.
Hey Black woman, hey. Welcome to the Black Woman Vibes podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest. So let's get to toasting. VC if this is the first time you're joining the Black Woman Vibes podcast, here is our mission statement. Black Woman Vibes focuses on empowerment through resourceful, informative guests, data-driven podcast topics, and exclusive subscription services that promote a shared experience of Black Woman Vibes. On today's podcast episode, we will be discussing Stoicism. So, as with last week, it was a two-parter, and we were discussing the dark night of the soul and all that entails with the dark night of the soul. Some of its features may include like the Saturn return, ascension, transmuting, and a deeper consciousness of self, how we present in this reality, and our ability to take agency over our lives and direct it to our ultimate abundance if we so choose to. And with this podcast episode, we're going to continue with the idea or the common thread of you being the decision maker, the final decision maker of your life, the direction of your life, as well as what you choose to engage in, what you choose to reject, to terminate, to put boundaries around or on that best prioritize you. And nothing else sums up this high vibrational existence, in my opinion, than Stoicism. When I had finished, or I was going towards my end of this whole Dark Night of the Soul and Saturn return, Stoicism really put things into perspective, and it helped me balance my own emotions as well as other people's energy. It allowed me to be very much present and stable in the wake of everything that was happening, because this is also during the height of the pandemic. So everything that was everything obviously was putting everybody in an anxious mindset, as well as depressive symptoms of failing mental health. So for me, keeping in mind with Stoicism, it allowed me to bring back to now, to not go too far left in the fear, fake evidence appearing as real, but also it allowed me to be present and see things that are uncomfortable and choosing how to deal with it, to what degree, and then everything else. If I check my list twice, cross my T's, dot my I's, and there's nothing else I can do, having the ability to release that and be like, I did everything that I could do, and the rest is up to God, and being okay with that. I created a little acronym to help me process this, and it was CPR, no different than the CPR first aid that most people get when they're working with the public. The C for me didn't mean cardio. C was create. P for me didn't mean pulmonary. P meant process. And R for me didn't mean resuscitation. It meant release. So create, process, and release. And being okay with whatever happens, however it falls, however the cookie crumbles. I can't control that, nor is that my responsibility, helped me a lot. So I want to share with y'all, the audience, especially if you have seen the growth of the podcast and you too have been going on a spiritual journey or personal development. I would highly suggest you looking into Stoicism, especially if y'all are emotionally triggered, if y'all are the type to have panic attacks, or you have a wild imagination, or your thoughts kind of run and keep on running, like you're always thinking about something, you're always processing something, you're always ruminating on something. If meditation is hard to get into, because I do understand meditation does take discipline to get into, the more you do it, the easier it is for you to fall into that state of being. But if you're not used to being mindful and present and being focused, then I would suggest Stoicism. And of course, we're going to break down Stoicism because that is the actual subject matter for this podcast episode. Let me not hold you too long because I actually want this to be a one-parter. Ha 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 ha. So we're going to read an article from NJ Life Hacks. And the title is The Easiest Way to Explain Stoicism, the Stoic Happiness Triangle. Stoicism is popular and its community seems to grow every day. But Stoic philosophy is also complex and it's immensely challenging to explain it in simple terms, which is very true. The original text from the Stoic philosophers consists of lecture notes, personal letters, and diary entries. They don't offer a clear-cut explanation on the philosophy like one out of a textbook, and even modern books fail to explain Stoicism in an easy-to-understand way. But we're going to break it down in this podcast episode for it to be easy and understandable. Online posts like my What is Stoicism article often list Stoic principles mixed together, which are surely worth studying, but fail to bring across a simple overview to hold onto. This is the idea behind the Stoic happiness triangle. It gives you a simple overview of the core principle of Stoicism. If you know the triangle, you know and are able to explain the most important aspects of what Stoicism is, even to a 5-year-old. The Stoic happiness triangle explains Stoic philosophy in a simple and visual way. It's a visualization of Stoic's core teachings. The Stoic happiness triangle in a nutshell. So I'm going to describe it to you. So, of course, the Stoic happiness triangle looks like an actual triangle, one top point and two bottom points. That first part, top point of the triangle has take responsibility. And then when you go to the left, that slides down. You have live with arete. And then next to that, right across it, is focus on what you control. And then, of course, that connects up towards take responsibility, hence the triangle. And the triangle itself is called eudaimonia. Eudaimonia. At the core of this new approach to Stoicism lies eudaimonia, the ultimate goal of life all ancient philosophies agreed on. The Greek origin of the word means being on good terms, with your inner daimon, your highest self. It often translated as supreme happiness and is about thriving in our lives. It's what we all want, to thrive and live a happy life. And how can we achieve this? By living with the three principles of the Stoic happiness triangle. Eudaimonia, good plus inner spirit, divine spark. Be good with your inner spirit. Live in harmony with your highest self. Live with arete. This is about being your best version in the here and now. Like I always end the podcast episodes, be the best version of yourself by mastering yourself. And of course, as we go out through this article and just a podcast topic in and of itself, we will make the connections of why Stoicism is important for this being the best version of yourself by mastering yourself, and how Stoicism helps you master yourself. If we want to live supremely happy life, we need to express our best self in every moment. It's about aligning our chosen actions with our deep values. Focus on what you control. This is the most prominent principle in Stoicism. The Stoics realize that there are things we control and things we don't control. For example, I say this all the time. I can only worry about the things that I can control. I can only control myself. And that quote directly came out of Stoicism. That was like the genesis of like me understanding what Stoicism was. When I got to the point where it's like, I cannot control any other factor outside of self. And the best way for me to get to point B from point A is how I present in the world, how I show up, who I agree to align with, who I agree to cut ties with. Like everything starts and ends with me. Once I understood the great responsibility that is, as well as the choice, the freedom to be like, I don't want to engage, or this is how much I want to engage. And shit, I don't want to engage anymore. Just having that understanding that I am in the captaincy, and if I see repetitive things over and over again, obviously I'm not responding in the way that should change the outcome, because here we are spinning in a circle. So it's very self-reflective. To get to the good life, we should focus on the things we control and accept the rest as it happens. We can't change what already is, but we can choose what to do with the given circumstances. Let's focus on that. Take responsibility. Even if we don't control everything that happens, we must take responsibility for our own lives. Because every event offers an area we control, namely how we judge the events and how we choose to respond. How much we give and to what we give our time to. Oftentimes we complain just for the sake of complaining, because complaining has turned into something cathartic, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. You get your pent up frustrations out and boom, you feel like things have changed. This is how, for example, I talked about this on my daily tarot readings on my YouTube page, BlackWomanVibes, how the media manipulates us because they are getting the first word about whatever breaking news is happening, right? but they all have a specific agenda that they cater to, whether we're talking about the CNNs, the Fox News, and everything in between, independent or mega media, right? They all have a certain agenda and criteria, and they're going to sanitize or dirty the news to whatever degree that they want to, because it's feeding an agenda, an idea, and they all have a concerted effort. They all benefit from us, the public, us, the commoners, believing in their narrative. He who creates the story creates the reality. Oftentimes we use the saying, does life reflect art or does art reflect life? So when these news media outlets take a certain conversation, they can spin it to sound MAGA or they can spin it to sound woke. What does that do to us when we're getting our news, our trusted information from these media outlets who really just want the clicks, who really just want the views, and who really wants them a secret army so they can have push and pull for their political careers and to continue being in bed with these mega corporations who don't give a damn about us, Amazon, but act as if they are for the people, but aren't doing anything tangible for the people, and keeping the people, we the commoners, blindsided in a tailspin fighting each other because the media tells us this thing and something next week. Meanwhile, while we're fighting with each other and listening to what we think is giving us accurate and 100% factual information, are really getting their news or creating the news from the agenda of the elites who are paying them, right? Who owns the Washington Post? Who owns Fox News? Who owns ABC? But now I'm stepping out of the podcast topic. So the point is, with Stoicism and taking responsibility, you take ownership for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you take initiative to either change, transmute the wrong, the L, the karma, the lesson, and then implement what was meant for you to keep, discard the rest, and use them as wisdom and lessons and a cultivation of personality and a lived life. So now you can make better choices. So taking responsibility and accountability allows you to continue ascending to be a better version of yourself, because now you have experience to talk from, not just talking just to talk, but you have experienced and a personal point of view, which matters, to say, hey, I once touched the burning stove with my bare hand. I won't do that again because last time X, Y, and Z happened. This is crucial in Stoicism. It's not an external situation that makes us happy or miserable, but our interpretation of that situation. Kind of like when we talked about in the earlier episodes in regards to BlackWomanVibes, Season 3, Episode 12 and Episode 13, titled 8 Types of Love That You Need to Know. Oftentimes we have a traumatic experience, and because we hold our judgments, whether good or bad, to that traumatic experience, we never end up closing that wound, which allows energy vampires to continue to trigger and feed off of that wound. But when we cut and clear those cords of attachments to that wound, we acknowledge it for what it is, we get our healing, and then we cut those cords, we're no longer attracting energy vampires who want to feed off of that low vibrational energy, but also we no longer are triggered by that traumatic event because we are no longer attached to it on an emotional, psychological, and openly vulnerable position, right? As the old saying goes, tell the truth and shame the devil. Also, we know the saying that goes, when you tell your own truth, no one can use it against you. But oftentimes we'll call a traumatic experience still trauma. We'll still say it's trauma, trauma, trauma. And trauma is the point in that dysfunction, that chaos, that broken skin, or whatever the case may be, whatever that was fragmented, that point at this time, this date, this location, that specific event is trauma. But afterwards, it's just traumatic. And anything that reminds you of that experience, it triggers that experience or whatever from that point of past lived life is traumatic. But oftentimes we keep on to the trauma because it becomes something comfortable, comfortably uncomfortable. It becomes familiar. It becomes a part of our identity when it's really not. And that's how energy vampires, we talk about this on the daily tarot readings on my YouTube channel, that demon time energy is able to feed off of it. Because when you have a wound, because ancient Greeks called trauma wounds, when you have an open wound, that's where demons, often referred to as monsters, can feed off of that energy, right? And manipulate our subconscious if we are not aware. So I'm going to leave the article right here because it touched on the points that I wanted to talk about to give you kind of a perspective on what is Stoicism and how it could be used to help you, especially if you are highly sensitive, if you get triggered a lot, or there's just a lot of brain activity. And I'm not judging. I am a thinker. Okay. I'm always in my head. I'm an earth sign. I'm a Taurus. Like, it comes with the territory. But Stoicism allows you to be present and allows you to check yourself as you are checking these thoughts, because oftentimes thoughts and memories and feelings are just rapidly just going in and out like a kitchen door. However, when you're able to incorporate Stoicism, you are allowed to shut it down or analyze the thoughts that you're having, but not from a point of view of you trying to restrict your natural self, because Stoicism is not about restricting or repressing or faking and being fraudulent to self. It's about knowing yourself and choosing how you want to present and to what degree you want to engage whatever circumstances is going on. It's about self-control, but not repression. It's more about cultivating your response. So you respond in your most authentic manner, but not out of like a chaos or impulsive energy. It's very much about like, okay, I'm here, I am present, I'm taking the lead, and I'm making the best decision under the circumstances, the cards that I am dealt with. So with Arati is about being the best version of yourself. And I add in the mastering yourself. But being the best version of yourself actually takes time for you to actually know yourself, right? So you have to go through life's challenges. You have to implement the philosophies that were given to you. You have to go through trials and tribulations, hardships, wins, failures, and this, that, and the third. And that gives you a better perception of yourself, as well as it gives you a somewhat perception of life, or at least the lived life experience that you've had, depending on the person that you are, the trauma that you have experienced, or the traumatic events that you have experienced, how much shadow work that you've done, and so many other things, including your actual healthy body, right? Because we know the brain fully develops by the time you hit your mid-20s, but we're talking about a healthy and fully functional brain. If you have experienced traumatic experiences, whether it's poverty, whether it's domestic violence, drug addiction, or whatever the case may be, that also affects your brain, in particular, the prefrontal cortex, where you make judgment. So all of this, the spiritual, the physical, the mental, the psychological, the body, all of this is incorporated with who we are, how we present, and the judgment cards, the judgment that we make in the circumstances that we face. But with Arate, it's very much about you showing up and you making the decisions that best represents you, as well as selecting or making a judgment call on what is the best outcome, the best possible outcome in your favor with whatever you choose in that moment, right? With arate, you very much would be a person who has virtue or who desires to be of high excellence. Now, that does not mean that you're competing with the next man or trying to live up to the idea of keeping up with the Joneses, right? But it's also not posturing as an enigma. It's also not trying to be defiant just to be defiant. If anything, it's about learning who you are, cultivating yourself, taking those leaps into the unknown, something like the Fool card, and being able to be grounded and willing to learn and make those investments like the Page of Pentacles. It's very much about going through the life experience, a spiritual being having a human experience, and implementing those lessons, good, bad, or indifferent, into your core personality, and then acting upon that on its highest vibration, right? We've all done karmic shit, right? We've all done low, unbecoming activities, depending on what it is, for what reason, whatever the case may be. Now, there's certain things you can get away with when you're in your early 20s because it's like, yeah, you're still young, you're still dumb. But by the time you hit your mid 40s, there isn't the same type of leniency, right? And the way that we expect a 45-year-old to show up in the world is not the same way that we expect a 21-year-old to show up and show out in the world, because the 45-year-old has enough life experience to know better, versus the 21-year-old is still trying to figure out what is this whole independence thing, right? So with arate, it's very much being disciplined. There's nothing that sucks worse when you see an older person who does not know their age, who does not know their limitation, who still wants to hang out as if they're high schoolers. Usually they're very predatory, like the R. Kelly types, or those teachers who end up sleeping with their male students, their underage male students, right? So arate is very much about understanding and that self-reflection and doing that shadow work and holding yourself accountable, because we have gotten away with things that maybe people don't know because no one was there or there was no cameras or whatever the case may be. But we know, right? Just like our spiritual team knows, the divine knows, light workers, our spirit guys, they've seen it because they're always around. They've seen it. But also, they'll take into consideration you doing these low vibrational things and you getting away with certain things, but also understanding like, okay, we're not going to do that again, right? Maybe you took a Crunch bar from the corner store, right? And you didn't get caught. But count your blessings that you didn't get caught, because if you did, that could have been a whole other life story. That could have took you completely off of your path. Whether that means delinquent centers or the justice system or the criminal court system or whatever the case may be, it could have been a whole left turn. So sometimes it's also about counting your blessings and not pushing your luck. Also, in regards to arate, many Stoics contribute these 4 character traits that makes a good person, a good, well-developed person. And these are their 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, self-discipline, right? Like I said with the Fool card, having the ability to take those leaps of faith, that's very much courage. Self-discipline, being able to do that shadow work, doing that introspective work. Justice, balancing the scales, not acting according to everybody else's script, everybody else's narrative, because it gives us very much tease of the old saying, if everybody were to jump off a bridge, would you jump off the bridge? Or do you want to be like everybody else, be like sheeple, or the blind leading the blind? It's very much of having your own moral code and standing on it, even if everybody else is not. And with wisdom, implementing those lessons. Again, you don't want to be the 45-year-old who's trying to get down with the early 20-something-year-olds, right? You don't know your place. You're trying to hold on to this like youth thing, this concept of like being desirable or being likable, right? Being caught up in renting space in other people's heads, clout chasing the end of the rainbow, fast, 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 crash, 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 no sense of a direction, penny with a hole in it. Again, you don't want to be like Nas's I know I can be what I want to be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be. I'll be where I want to be. Be, boys and girls, listen up. You don't want to be like those cautionary tales because you was too busy chasing these illusions, delusions, confusions, these 7 of cups in your head instead of working on yourself. Fast, 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 and you will crash, crash, crash. When it comes to focusing on what you control, very much like I said before, the concept of you being able to control yourself and control your life. Oftentimes when things do not work our ways, we pull this whole martyr, woe is me, life doesn't go our way. But like I've been saying in my daily tarot readings, everything is transactional. So if you put out into the atmosphere that I'm oppressed and nothing works in my manner and people keep on picking on me, this, that, and the third, it's not that this reality of yours does not exist. But it's like you saying to the universe that you will always be subjugated, that you will never be able to fight back or be able to regain the upper hand. It's very much of a victim mentality. And that's not to say that you have not been victimized, but to continue playing on those tropes and to continue to energetically on a psychological and emotional energy, low vibrational energy of consistently being victimized, then no, you will never see the end of the rainbow. You will never see the benefits and the glow ups. No, you will never be able to flip and make $100 out of $10. You will never be able to have side hustles. You will never be able to see the bigger picture because you're so stuck in this miserly and fragmented and vulnerable and disempowered mentality. So you're going to seek out things that remind you of how disempowered that you are, right? You see this very often, especially in the social justice arena, right? They will jump leaps and bounds to make the whole, we'll never get anything, we'll never be anything. As long as this, that, and the third exists, nothing good will happen to us. But they don't want to acknowledge small victories. As small as they are victories. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. As a Black woman, I feel 1,000% more safer living in this era, 2021, versus living, I don't know, 70 years ago. As a Black woman, me existing would be defiant, okay? I'd have to worry about white men who want to lynch me or rape me. I got to worry about white women who want to use their white fragility and white tears to get me beat up, raped, or murdered. I got to deal with Black men who feel as if they're oppressed and they don't get a seat at the table of patriarchy, so they want to take their brutality out on me. I got to deal with a conservative era that does not know anything about spirituality and wouldn't even take it seriously. Like, my whole life would be all's my life I had to fight. And on top of that, we still got to deal with police corruption, politics that don't do anything for me. I may or may not be able to vote. Like, these are still things I would have to deal with that modern era on top of like me just existing. So with everything that is of 2021 and has been leading up to the year 2021, I can say without a doubt, I am safer living in 2021 than I would be living 70 years ago. At the very least, in this era, I have rights. Now, will it be respected? Will it be honored? Will it be enforced? That is the question for the justice system. But I know 70 years ago, that wouldn't even be a concept recognized, okay? And this doesn't need to be a political podcast episode because I don't really like going into politics because politics brings out the crazy. But I'm saying that in regards to taking responsibility is that your life is in your hands and you get to direct it, right? There's a saying that goes 90% of life is what you choose to do, and 10% of life is what happens to you. Like, we're not all born with silver spoons in our mouths. We're not all born in a first world nation. We are not all this and the third. We all have some experiences of hardship or something that did not go in our favor. Very understandable. But at the end of the day, you're still here. So what are you going to do with that? How are you going to change the way that you show up in this life and the way that you engage? You may not be able to control the political system, right? You may not be able to be like, hey, you're going to be senator, you're going to be mayor, oh, you're definitely going to be president. Like, you don't get to orchestrate the puppet show. Got it. But what can you do to make sure that at the very least, you make sure that you are doing what's in your best interest? Are there relationships that you need to cut off? Are there people that you need to tell off? Are there things that you're doing that are self-sabotaging? Are there projects that you have not completed? Those are things that you can take responsibility for, and you can make that change. But that's an investment, and that's some hard truth. That's some hard introspective work. Because it's easier for us to point fingers at everybody else and make excuses and be like, well, this is happening because of this, that, and the third. It's harder to be like, okay, whether true or false, I'm still here, so I still got to do something about it, right? That's harder. And it's even harder to hold yourself to that degree and consistently work at it, consistently push through, consistently invest, even with the snot nose crying and everything. That's harder. And that's a commitment, but that's a commitment to self. And I feel like a lot of people are okay with making broken promises to self than they are to people who, at the end of the day, shouldn't even matter to them. A lot of people are very loyal to people they know aren't loyal to them and will be down and out for these people, but won't even give themselves 10 minutes to just woosah. When it comes to focusing on what you control, 3 character traits that shows that you've been implementing Stoicism is high influence, our choices in judgment and actions, right? Seeing the pattern of behavior, right? And not doing that. Like, it's a good time, not a long time, and I'm going to end up crying at 3 o'clock in the morning and responding to big head texts. Do we want to go down this road again, or do we want to avoid the impending tower moment? It's about understanding what is and what is not and taking it for what it is. There's a lot of things that are, it is what it is, that I don't personally like, but because I know what it is, there is no point in fighting the air. And a lot of people got to ask themselves, why do they continue fighting the air? Why do they continue with this uphill battle? Why do they continue lining up the swords that are going to be jammed in their back? Why do they continue to be martyrs on the hill of whatever insignificant or toxic or dangerous belief systems and groups and ideologies or behavior patterns or whatever the case may be? You got to ask yourself, do you purposely work against your best interest, and why? Are you addicted to your own misery, and why? Impartial influence, health, wealth, relationships, and outcomes of our behaviors. So things that influence us, right? The way that we were raised, right? Understanding generational cycles, understanding behavioral patterns, whether it's, let's say, generational poverty or children out of wedlock or choosing a particular prototype to reproduce with, like certain things that are like common denominators, common factors. It could even be like maybe being a zealot or maybe being very atypical because of the way that you were raised. Maybe you faced a lot of disappointment, or maybe you were raised in a very strict household. So you have your particular, like, these are my hard lines, and it's not something that you really need to be hard line about, but you're inflexible. That might have to do with the fact of whatever in the past. So these unconscious influences, the way you were raised, the things that you experienced, the things that you came to believe to be true, your insecurities and things of that nature, all of that influence us unconsciously, consciously, but to us unconsciously. No influence, whether ethnicity and most external circumstances. So this is how we perceive society perceives us. So the way that we show up. I'm going to use the example. As a Black woman, I cannot live in other people's heads, right? I know as a Black woman, me being tall and me being medium tone, me having natural hair, me being curvy, me being very passionate when I speak, there's a whole lot of boxes that people probably put me in before I open my mouth. But I can't rent space in their heads and try to become something like an Rubik's Cube, switching and moving and sliding to the left and to the right to try to be something that I am not to make someone else comfortable, right? These are not my issues. These are not my problems. So I don't live in other people's expectations or stereotypes of me. I just present in my authenticity, whether respected or disrespected, loved or hated, or whatever the case may be. If I can wake up and go to sleep every day respecting myself and knowing that I am authentic with myself, and if that does not work for other people, that's A-okay, because that's none of my business. The way that you feel about me has nothing to do with me, then I'm okay with that. So if you would like to show your gratitude via donation, you can always hit me up either on Cash App, $BlackWomanVibes, or Venmo, BlackWomanVibes, woman with an A, not an E, because it's only me, she, her, we. Now back to your regular scheduled broadcast, and I hope you enjoy. And then lastly, take responsibility. I know this sounds like somebody's mama with their hand boiled and rocked up, fist up, and they have it to the side and they got one finger wagging in the kid's face. Take responsibility, Johnny. But it's not necessarily about wagging fingers and being anybody's mama, anybody's disciplinary figure. But taking responsibility is natural. It's adulting. It's honestly just being grown, being on your grizzy grind, being grown. And what I mean by that is sometimes you have the best intentions for things, right? This is where we get the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. Sometimes you have the best intentions. Sometimes you like, oh, I'm finna do this, I'm finna do that, boom, boom, bam. I done wrote my list and checked it twice. Okay, I got this, that, and the third waiting to cut. I can't wait, whoop, whoop, whoop. And with all the best intentions that you had, with all the love and light that you done sprinkled on, with all the crystal magic, saging, affirmations, ancestor altars, chanting, singing bowl ceremonies, with all the ashe and libations that you done set ablaze on whatever the hell that you have planned, somehow, some way, it goes awry. Somehow, some way, there's a pause, there's a delay. Somehow, some way, whatever the issue is, it just slipped out your fingers. Sometimes you still got to be like, you know what, my bad. Even if it really wasn't your bad. And those are the ones that suck the most, because it's really like, it had nothing to do with me. Like, I had no power over this situation. Like, these are not my intentions. Like, this is not the way I thought it was going to happen. But sometimes, honestly, people just want to hear a sincere, I apologize. And standing on that. Not just, I apologize to, calm down the angry mob, but I don't really believe in it. People don't like lip service. People don't like being played for a dummy or being perceived as if they're not smart enough to understand that you're patronizing them. Being sincere. A lot of times just saying, I apologize or sorry for the delay, that knocks out 50% of that person's bite, right? They were about to bark on the phone. You hit them with the, I apologize for the long wait. How may I help you? Then they're like, well, well, my issue is, when in reality, they were waiting for the rep to come back on to be like, and you had me on hold for 10 minutes. Because usually it's not really about you. It's whatever's going on in their life. They're going through a divorce right now. So right now they want to vent. So you're the first person that they're venting on. And that's not to say that you need to accept their emotional vomit. That's not to say that you don't need to have boundaries. That's not to say that you should allow people to treat you and talk to you any type of way. But taking accountability about how you show up and how you present and how it affects other people is so kind, is so selfless of you, as well as it shows consideration, compassion, and genuine understanding. And that's when it goes wrong and you had nothing to do with it and you're like, well, what the hell? But when you know you could have done something better, or you knew you was on some shiesty shit, or you knew you was on some karmic low vibrational shit, taking accountability, not only does it help you when it comes to like good karma points, but also it shows your growth, because not everybody's going to get it. And not everybody's going to get it on the first try. And no one is expecting everybody to get it, because how long have humans been on this earth? Where's a perfect human manual, right? Where's how to be a perfect parent manual? And I need 5 stars ever since 1 BC. Okay. I need me 100% rating. There is none. Because we're flawed. We are perfectly flawed as human beings. We're perfectly imperfect as human beings. And no one is asking us, or at least I'm not asking or requiring anyone to be perfect, because again, perfection and time are all illusions, because how I view perfection is not the same way that you view perfection, but hence here we are talking about perfection, right? Like time. Time is an illusion because time is different depending on your time zone, as well as it's an agreed upon accumulation of time, if that makes sense, right? So we agree every 60 seconds is a minute because we genuinely agree on that. But why can't 50 seconds equate to a minute? And why can't 130 seconds equate to a minute? Because that's not the agreed upon consensus of how we measure this thing, this idea of time. But the point is, when it comes to taking responsibility, it shows your character as a person. It shows your integrity. It shows humility, and it reinforces trust within you as an individual. Being able to be like, I messed up. I didn't see this, or I purposely did do that. My bad. My shadow was calling. The demon time done got me. People look at you and yeah, they'll judge and yeah, they'll be disappointed and give you speeches or repercussions. But there's a lot more people who will be like, you know what? That was real human of you. That was real big of you. That was real of you. And I respect you even more, depending on what you done did now. If you done did something real criminal, I don't really think that's going to be the outcome. But just showing that I'm a man and I'm flawed too, or I'm a woman and I am flawed too, there is a lot of brownie points in that. Because oftentimes people love showing the most clean and pristine and refined version of themselves, but they don't want to show you the morning breath and the crust in the eyes and the pimple face and the missing edges and the stretch. People don't really want to see that. That's not really going to go viral. So a lot of people are okay living in the escapism, living in the illusion, and living in half truths because they're not true to themselves. They do not have an authentic vessel with self, and they don't accept themselves. So if they cannot do that with themselves, then how can they do that with other people? Especially when there's an L on the menu and the plate has their name on it. How are they going to take that out? How are they going to step up and take whatever repercussions or whatever the outcome is when they can't even be real with themselves? Everything starts with self first. Again, how we show up and to what degree starts off with self. Period. As Epictetus, a philosopher of Stoicism, said, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. So keeping that in mind very much should ground us. right? And help us understand what is this thing as spiritual beings having a human experience. Again, there isn't a self-mastery book that has transcended and existed for the centuries. We're also trying to navigate and understand what is this thing called life, right? But the goal should always be trying to ascend and be better than you were a year ago or a decade ago, right? That's the goal, to not stay stagnant. Because when you do stay stagnant, as we discovered with the 8 stages of development, once you hit that middle age years, that's when you have all that shoulda, woulda, coulda, and now you're facing more time behind you than in front of you, and now you're trying to play catch up with your life instead of just living said life, cultivating and aiming to be the best version of yourself, not fully mastering every single thing, but having enough experience where you have an enriched lived life. So now when you are middle-aged, senior years in your life, you're not out here trying to do a redo. You're just sipping your tea and spreading your wisdom as an elder. And not someone who's just old. An old fool at that. Because the goal is to have stimulus. Stimulus is something that happens. And then we react. That is our response. But between the stimulus and response, there is a line. And above the line, we have automatic unconscious responses. Below the line, we have freedom to choose. Stoicism is very much about, I wouldn't say control, but I would say influence, and having the ability and the awareness to choose how you show up and how you respond, right? We cannot control life. Life is just happening to us, right? But we can choose on how we respond. We can go with our automatic unconscious responses, right? Things don't go our way, so we have blow-ups. Things take a detour, we start throwing fits. Someone didn't call us back, we accuse them of cheating. We could use and continue running on those faulty scripts of trauma bonding, low vibrational energy, and demon attachments, and so on and so forth. Or we can apply Stoicism and have the freedom to choose to be like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't jump off the porch and land on my ankle. Perhaps I'm not getting a call back because, they are kind of like a surgeon and they might legitimately be in surgery. So I should just kind of wait. Sometimes it really is us taking ourselves out of the mental illusions, delusions, confusions, and having a pep talk with ourselves and being like, are you being paranoid again? Are you just jumping off the porch again? Are you jumping to conclusions again? Sometimes you got to do that self-awareness, that self-check. You got to chin check yourself, because it really is sometimes you tripping. And Stoicism allows you to pull that mirror in front of yourself and be like, are you tripping? Or is this intuition? Because sometimes they keep on pulling the disappearing trick and they're not no doctor. Something's not adding up. And that's when you need to further investigate. But having the gift of discernment will teach you if this is truly intuition, or is this codependency or insecurity or whatever else that is low vibrational. And this is why Epictetus advises to always have 2 rules ready in mind when we are experiencing things that stimuli, things are just happening. And before we jump into a response, on the unconscious tip, Epictetus advises us to consider there is nothing good or bad unless we choose to make it so. We shouldn't try to lead events, but follow them, right? So that is Stoicism in a nutshell. It's very much about us taking leadership over our lives, very much of that 6 of Swords, being in calm waters, going to the calmest and most secure locations emotionally, psychologically, because swords is very much communication, our thought process. So again, if the brain is unhealthy, of course, most likely than not, we're going to make unhealthy decisions. But even with an unhealthy brain, we can start to make decisions that make sense, taking the accountability aspect, right? Very much being our own directors of our own play, our own narrative, rewriting the script, as well as being accountable for how we show up in the world and to what degree, right? We can play the sideline to our own story, or we can be the captain saver, or we can be the damsel in distress. We could be whatever role that we choose to assign to ourselves. But whatever role it is, let it be from our most authentic and most healthiest place. And if not, I would suggest looking into Stoicism. And when I started my Stoicism journey, I listened to a lot of videos and read content in regards to Marcus Aurelius, and more so about his life and how Stoicism enhanced his own philosophies and his own view on life. So maybe that might help you. Or you could just look up Stoicism in and of itself. There's a lot of content on that. But if you're looking for emotional, psychological, and clarity, Stoicism really can help you. As well as, I'm always going to push it. Y'all should already know. Therapy works. Therapy is not a miracle drug. It's not a miracle cure, but it really helps to talk to someone who knows what the hell they're talking about. Whether it's lived experience, whether it's psychological experience, medication also helps a lot. Do not make anybody make you feel shameful for using medication. Getting your mental balance, getting the brain chemistry balance is très important, very important. So if you need it, go to those who can help you. And if you have issues in regards to insurance, or you have issues in regards to getting the healthcare that you need, definitely call your local community advocates, your resources, your insurance company. There's also telecommunication online. There's also like workshops and groups of people on the internet. I'm going to also push my Patreon, patreon.com/BlackWomanVibes. A lot of content in regards to personal development, astrology, and mental health. So content like that, if you're really into spirituality, or you're really into like just being a better version of yourself, or confronting yourself and doing some shadow work, realigning your chakras, being the best version of yourself by mastering yourself, standing in your authenticity unapologetically, cutting the cords to people, places, and things that hinder you, and walking with purpose on purpose to get all the abundance that you deserve on this earth, then the Patreon platform, Black Woman Vibes, may indeed help you with that. In closing, thank you to the listeners for tuning in. You can find the Black Woman Vibes podcast on Facebook, Black Woman Vibes, Instagram, Black Woman Vibes, Twitter, Black Woman Vibes, YouTube channel, Black Woman Vibes. Please like, follow, and share content. Don't forget to join the tribe of Black Woman Vibes. On Patreon is where we openly have conversations behind the scenes that helps us as sisters grow and level up. Each one teaches us all, from live streams, advisor emails, speaking engagements, all can be found on Black Woman Vibes. Patreon and Facebook page. Isn't it time for Black women to live and live well? Be the best version of yourself by mastering yourself. I'll be back next Wednesday with a whole new and the finale of season 3 of Black Woman Vibes. With all that being said, y'all, be blessed, be enlightened, be loved. I am your hostess with the mostest. So let's get to toasting. Ding. VCNA. Logging off. Peace.